We're all hearing about generative AI right now, and for good reason. I mean, the stuff it can do is just incredible. But what's actually making all that magic happen under the hood? Well, today we're going to pull back the curtain on one of the most important ideas of them all, the attention mechanism. This concept, right here, is what totally changed the game for how AI understands and generates language.
So to really get why attention is such a huge deal, let's just start with something you've probably experienced. You know when you use an online translator, and 1 minute it's absolutely perfect, and the next it spits out total nonsense. The secret to both those amazing successes and those baffling failures, it really comes down to this one single elegant idea.
Okay, take a look at this. It seems so simple, right? In English, we say black cat. But in French, the words actually flip. It's le chat noir, which literally translates to the cat black. Now, for a machine, that's a massive puzzle. How on earth does it know that to start the French sentence, it has to look at the second word of the English sentence? How does it figure out where to focus and when? That's the core problem we're talking about.
To really appreciate the solution, first, you gotta understand the problem. See, before the attention mechanism came along, AI models had this fundamental flaw, a kind of bottleneck that really held them back from understanding context, especially in longer sentences.
The classic way of doing things was with something called an encoder-decoder model. Just think of it like a two-part system. First, you have the encoder. Its whole job is to read the input sentence and basically squish all of its meaning down into a single, compact thought. Then you have the decoder, which takes that one single thought and unpacks it into the output, in our case, the French translation. But here is the massive bottleneck. As the encoder reads each word, first black, then cat, it's updating its internal memory. But the critical flaw was this. It only passed its final memory, its final thought, after seeing the very last word, over to the decoder. Think about it. That's like reading an entire book and then being asked to summarize it based only on what you remember from the final page. You'd miss pretty much everything that mattered, right? That was the context problem. And this is where everything changed. The attention mechanism was designed to completely smash that bottleneck. It gave the AI a flexible and really powerful way to look at the entire input sentence at every single step of the process.
So what is it exactly? Well, in a nutshell, the attention mechanism gives the model the power to decide which parts of the input are important. For every single word it's about to write, it basically asks itself, okay, out of all the original words I read, which ones are the most relevant to me right now? Then it gives each of those original words a score, a weight, telling itself exactly where to focus its attention.
This is the perfect way to think about it. The old models, they had tunnel vision. They were just locked onto that one single final thought from the encoder. But a model with attention, it has a spotlight, and it can shine that spotlight on any part of the original sentence whenever it needs to. It gets access to all the thoughts, not just the last one.
Okay, so that's the what. Now for the how. Let's take a quick look under the hood at the two key changes that make this whole spotlight thing possible.
It really just boils down to two big shifts. First, the encoder doesn't just pass its final thought anymore. No way. It passes every single thought it had along the way, the rich context it built for the word black, and the context for cat, and so on. This gives the decoder the whole picture. And second, the decoder itself gets an upgrade. It gets a brand new, three-step process to intelligently use all this rich new information.
And here's that process. For every single word it's about to write, the decoder first looks at all that context from the encoder. Then it scores each piece, asking, how relevant is this to what I need to write right now? And finally, it amplifies the information that got the highest scores and kind of tunes out the rest. This creates a custom blended context that is perfectly tailored for the very next word. And this brings us right back to our black cat puzzle. Check this out. When the model needs to write the word chat, you can see the attention, those blue circles, is almost entirely focused on the input word cat. Then, when it's time to write noir, the spotlight dynamically shifts and bam, it focuses heavily on the word black. It learned all on its own exactly where to look and when to look there. That's the magic.
So look, this wasn't just a small improvement. It was a total paradigm shift. Going from that memory bottleneck to a flexible spotlight completely changed what AI was capable of. And it's the innovation that paved the way for the massive language models we see everywhere today.
So why was this one idea so important? Well, because by solving that context problem, it allows models to finally understand long, complex sentences and tricky grammar. But its impact goes so much further than just translation. This attention mechanism became the absolute heart of a revolutionary new architecture. the transformer. And the transformer is the engine that's driving virtually all of modern generative AI today.
So if you're going to take one thing away from this, it's this. Attention gives an AI the ability to see the whole picture. It's no longer stuck looking at just the last piece of the puzzle. It can weigh and consider every piece of information to make the smartest possible decision every single step of the way. And it leaves us with a really fascinating question. This ability to learn where to focus, to learn what's relevant, is such a fundamentally powerful tool. We've seen what it can do with language. The real question now is, what's next? What other incredibly complex problems in science or in art or medicine could be unlocked just by teaching a machine where to pay attention?